Good morning to you all. This morning it's a sunny day. It's a beautiful day out there. As I walked in the garden this morning, you could hear the birds chirping and singing. No worries. But it just gave me the encouragement to face whatever challenges I face for today, to face it head on. In lesson 8, we're going to be looking at critical incident stress debriefing, or better known as CISD. Now, when I were a rookie chaplain, I got a phone call that they needed me on a scene. There was a P4. Now, all I heard was scene address P4. And I thought that P4, it's a road that you need to take to get to the scene. Only to discover later on that it's a medical term used to identify the patient's condition. A P1 is when the patient is seriously injured. P2 when the injuries are moderate. P3 injuries minor. And a P4 is not a road, it's not a park. It means the patient has passed away. Also, you will find that if you're on security groups or your CPF group, that they will sometimes ask for assistance from a ILS or a ALS. Now, a ILS is an intermediate life support, and an ALS is advanced life support. That is normally your paramedic staff. This is not in the manual, this is just information that I'm giving you that I know will come in handy as you journey as a chaplain. Now, CISD is a specific 7-phase small group supportive crisis intervention program. It is simply a supportive crisis focus discussion of the traumatic event, and is normally referred to as a critical incident. Now, critical stress and CISD, what is it? We all know that people face certain challenges different than the other person. There's no right and there's no wrong on how we react. So it's quite normal. Will you find a person has blocked all the emotions off? They show no reaction. Others may suffer from nightmares and sleep disturbance and confusion. Some might fall into a hole of depression or anger outburst. These are all quite normal. You get your physical symptoms that may include a rapid heartbeat or night sweats or headaches or dizziness. While most of these symptoms only would last for a few days, others can carry on for weeks or even months following the incident. Now, what is the chaplain's role in CISD? We should strive to be attentive to individuals in crisis. A chaplain will sometimes be a link between the officials on the scene and the victims. They would sometimes share more information with you than they would share with the officials on the scene. But like I said, there's 7 phases. One of the phases is a debriefing process. Debriefing is a process that after an incident took place, a chaplain will go out to a scene and debrief the staff or debrief the people affected by the incident. What normally happens is I'll give you once again a personal experience. I was called out to a scene the day after an armed robbery. And the people were traumatized. Some of the people didn't go to work. And what do you do? What is a debriefing session? Debriefing is when you get everybody in a boardroom and you sit around a table and they just talk briefly on what happened. I normally go, and on my chaplaincy jacket I've got stripes, that's the icebreaker. I ask them, what color is this? Some would say yellow, some would say green, some would say lime green, some would say neon yellow or neon green. And I'll ask everybody. And the point I'm trying to make there is, I don't know what color it is. To me, it's a yellow-greenish color. So the point that I get across to them is, there's no right and there's no wrong. Some people may say that, oh no, he had a huge gun. And some would say, no man, it was a small gun. But to the individual that describes it as a big gun, in their mind, it was a big gun. It was a threat. It was a big threat, not something small. So there's no right and there's no wrong. Because as soon as you start a debriefing process and the people want to correct a colleague, that person that's been corrected will start doubting what they saw. And they will block. They won't participate in the debriefing session anymore, in fear that they might not say the right thing. In fear that they doubt themselves. So there's no right and there's no wrong in a debriefing session. Also, when you go to a company and from the CEO or the managing director or the office manager is part of the debriefing session, their title, their rank, they leave outside. In a debriefing session, there is no rank. And the reason being, if a rookie or a normal office worker or a cleaner or a filing clerk sit in a environment where the managing director is also involved, it's a respect thing. They don't want to say anything in fear of it might be a career limiting statement that you make. So there's no rank in there. If only one person is affected by the incident, there's no need to call the whole group. There's no need to call the whole group. It could have been that it was early in the morning and only the receptionists were there. There's no need to call the whole group in. You do a one-on-one debriefing session. It's also very advisable that when you get called out to a debriefing session, and a debriefing session normally happens after an incident. There is no time frame, but as soon as possible. The sooner the better. If it's a large group, we've had a few times with Prof. Willie and myself, we went out to EMPD to do a debriefing session there, that you have more than one chaplain there. We've had an incident at a school, and I got other chaplains involved, and the plan was to break it up in smaller groups, and each chaplain or two takes a group. Remember, once you start the debriefing session, you've got to finish it. So once everybody has given their opinions and their point of view of what happened, what they saw, what they experienced, because you ask questions like, what did you experience? how did it make you feel? And they will share with the group. And once one person comes up and said, but I was afraid, I thought this might happen to me, everybody else in the group won't feel that they're the only ones that were scared. In such a debriefing session, you ask the questions towards the end. Is there anything else you want to talk about? A lot of them will open up. And this can be a lengthy session. So be prepared for it. There is no time limit on debriefing. And a debriefing, once you start, if you're at a company, you ask the reception to hold all the calls, or you divert the calls to somebody that is not in the meeting. And preferably when they're in the office, you ask them to stay, because it's helpful for everybody. You don't force the issue. You don't force the people to talk. Because remember, earlier on I said that some of the people will show no reaction. So don't drag it out of them. There will be people that will just want to talk and talk and talk. In the beginning of the debriefing, you tell them try and keep it as brief and short as possible. But you will get some of the individuals that want to get everything off their chest. Allow them to. Remember, there's no time frame to a debriefing session. You can ask leading questions such as, what were some of the thoughts that you had while you were at the scene or soon after the scene? Everyone should have the opportunity to give his or her thoughts on what happened and how they felt. Not everybody will share certain information. They will want to share that in confidence with you. So like I also said, in a larger group, try and break it into smaller groups. It just makes it more manageable for the chaplain. I personally enjoy a group of, say, 10, 15 people. More than that, it becomes a bit difficult to manage. So always have more than one chaplain available. Follow up, people. You need to follow up. Remember, it's not a hit and run. You can't just go out and make sure they're okay now. When you leave, you think, you know what, great job. You've made a difference in their lives. They feel better, they feel lighter, and leave them on their own. Because they will fall back, or the chances are they will fall back. So you need to do a follow-up. A lot of times in these debriefing sessions, we don't open in prayer because of various religions present around the boardroom table. But there will be times where they ask, can you pray for us? Then you pray for them and you give them the assurance that, you know what, you're still a child of God. And you pray for them. A lot of times just that short prayer just boosts them. And they will come back to you and say, you know what, in that time that I was facing the crisis, when I was held up, or whatever the situation was, I knew that I wasn't alone. Then there's techniques that you need to teach them, because a lot of times, if you go there a day or two after the incident, you ask, how did you sleep? And 9 out of 10 times, people will tell you, I can't sleep. I can't get the image out of my head. That is a problem. And that image that normally comes back is when you're alone. When you're alone. And it's only you and your own thoughts. And in bed, when you're alone in bed, and you try and sleep, and the images will flash like a film in your mind. You can teach them a breathing exercise. Breathing relaxes you. Breathe in, hold for a few seconds, breathe out. Deep in, out. That relaxes your body. And I'm going to teach you something that a psychologist taught me many years ago. Because as a chaplain, you see a lot of ugly sights. And people will ask you, how do you cope with it? And I'm going to teach you quickly on one of the methods that I use to cope with images in my mind. It takes a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And what you do is you take your telephone and you set a timer for 3 minutes. Then you think of, then you think of 3 places where you're happy. Happy might be music, listening to music, might be a lekker steak, and might be seaside, holiday. So it would be music, eating, or music, steak, sea, music, steak, sea. So when you start your 2-minute session, you set the timer, you press the button, eyes closed, you count to 30. Once you reach 30, you in your mind, you say the 3 words over and over and over, your happy place. Music, steak, seaside, music, steak, seaside, music, steak, seaside. And eventually you're going to start dragging the words, or you're going to try and make it quicker, or drag the other one quick. Your mind's going to try and drift away. And as soon as your mind drifts away, you say, no, mind, we're not going there now. We're coming back to the music, the steak, and the seaside. It's going to drive you what you think is mad. After the 3 minutes, when the alarm goes off, you stop the alarm and you count from 1 to 30 again, or even from 30 down to 1. What does that help you? Now when you get that image, you tell your mind, no, we're not going to that image. I don't want to see that image. I want my music, my steak, and my seaside. And you say those 3 words, your happy place, for 3 or 4 times, and that image will disappear. And the more you do it, the less the images will come back into your mind. So that is just in brief what CISD is, Critical Incident Stress Debriefing. Remember guys, we not all qualified counselors. A debriefing session is not a counseling session. And after an incident, straight after an incident, debriefing cannot take place. It normally takes place 48 to 72 hours after the incident, because your brain gives off a chemical, and that chemical in your brain, in your body, is active for 48 to 72 hours. So in that time, prior to the chemical being worked out of your system, you're not going to get much done with the person. They're not going to face reality. They'll still be in a mode where the chemical actually just puts them in a auto mode. So only after 48 or 72 hours will a counseling session start. But like I say, we're not all trained counselors. But should you find that you need to refer somebody for counseling, you can contact myself, you can contact Prof. Willie, or in the back of your manual there will be centers available to do the counseling. If you're not trained to do the counseling, you can cause more harm. than any good. I hope and trust that you found this training to be helpful. Like I said before, my training is very brief, but you need to go through the manual to fully understand all the nitty-gritties of the topic. I thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again in Module 5, the last module. Be blessed, stay blessed. Shalom.